This episode is brought to you by North Texas Honda Dealers. North Texas Honda Dealers, they're here to help.
He has time, launches it to the end zone. Touchdown! Terrence Williams!
The throw goes to the right side for Crabtree. It's caught. He plays. Oh, he's going touchdown, Red Raiders!
Was he up the 10? Was he up the right sideline?
Yeah, he's got to go. He's tackled. Sam Houston wins it. The Bearcats capture their first FCS championship.
Hello, welcome to the Republic of Football show that definitely has done only one intro for this episode. I'm your college editor, Ishmael Johnson. Introducing myself, I'm just going to tell you, we had to do it again. My mic wasn't working. So we'll introduce... It's probably my fault. We're in studio today, this week, because Mike Craven swung by, our college editor, our senior writer.
That was even better the second time.
More enthusiastic.
Deja vu. I got a little wider there.
The finger guns.
Yeah, I've noticed I'm in a much better mood when I come to this place once every 2 weeks.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
I get that.
Been a good day.
I get that. Yeah, so you're done with some of your magazine treks and you sent hit your deadlines, your first deadlines. You know, we'll talk about some reasons you have to make some edits, but, we'll get into that this episode.
Chugging along.
Yeah, we're chugging along. And, of course, the reason you can hear us and see us if you're watching us live on wherever we're streaming, because I'm tired of naming all those websites and getting them wrong. Mallory, everyone's favorite Malpal. How are you?
Hello, everybody. I'm good.
Yeah.
Getting over a cold.
Oh.
But
You were kind of under the weather last week.
Yeah, I'm feeling better though. But
Yeah.
if I sound weird on the podcast version, that's why. So.
There you go. So we got some late breaking news the last week and a little bit of late this weekend, I guess. I don't know. We had a lot of players enter the transfer portal because, that deadline came up, I guess, today for at least non-grad transfers.
Mm-hmm.
If you graduate, you can still do whatever you want, I guess. But, yeah, I hinted at it. Craven turned in all of his magazine stuff. And then we were like, okay, we're kind of preparing for, some stuff if transfer happens here or there. Then Alton McCaskill hits the portal. Yeah. And it was like, oh, we're dealing with those transfers now. And then we thought, got that out of the way. And then Zachary Franklin hit the transfer portal. And I was like, oh, okay, there's a first team wide receiver. He's not going to be anymore. I'm just going to tell you that right now. He's gone. And then we were like, okay, now we're done, right? And then UNT had more. And then, just to get Mallory involved, Michigan State, for some reason, decided to get it on the transfer. I know this isn't a Michigan State podcast. But
I felt very sick yesterday. That's all I'm going to say about
Michigan
it. I
State
just felt
starting quarterback
very
left.
sick.
They decided, Texas is having way too much fun.
Wide receiver.
And they were like, we're going to leave
starting
too.
corner. I didn't.
So,
felt bad.
yeah, so that's where we're going to start off today because that's a little bit of the breaking news. We'll get into the draft. We're going to talk a little bit of draft, and we're going to talk a little bit of conference contenders afterward. But this is the news that's been dropping, and at least right now, knocking on wood, right, again, grad transfer is pending, right? May 1st is here, so the non-Gradford transfer portal deadline is done. We don't know where these guys are going. We can talk about a Buffalo in the room in a bit, if you want to hint, a little bit of a hint is where they're probably going. But Craven, did you have did you slowly descend into madness first when it was Alton McCaskill and then Zachary Franklin?
Y'all saw me in Slack.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's pretty mad.
That is very true.
I was pretty mad. And I'm not alone here, right? Like anybody that's putting together a college magazine is dealing with this. Like
I was about to say, I want to talk about Phil. I would love to talk to Phil Steele right now.
Who I like to fashion myself as the zero sugar Phil Steele.
Sure.
I was talking about that with a couple assistant coaches. I called myself Diet Phil Steele, and they were like, zero sugar's way better. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna steal that one. Yeah, it's a crazy time in college football. I think a lot of the college coaches knew it was coming, and it was hunkering down in a bunker and hoping it passed over you,
And it was
you didn't
looking
lose
like
one
that.
of your guys.
It was looking like it.
And that's the thing is I think a couple of coaches thought they were out of the weeds and then they weren't all of a sudden. So, on the football side, Zachary Franklin is the best player that entered the portal. I think Alton McCaskill is the biggest lost.
100%.
If you look at UTSA, if they were going to lose a player, wide receiver is a spot to have. You still have Joshua Cephas. You still have J.T. Clark. Kellogg's coming back. Oscar Cardenas is
was about to
back
say, he's a
at
big
tight
pass
end.
catcher, yeah.
And so you have guys to replace Zachary Franklin. You may not replace Zachary Franklin, but his production you can figure out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like with Frank Harris back, they're going to be able to throw the ball around. They're going to be okay offensively. Houston, however,
A little bit of a different state here.
they were going to build the plane out of Alton McCaskill. Like he was going to be the focal point of that offense. Tank Dale's gone, Clayton Tune is gone, but we're getting McCaskill back. We're going to, have a decent starting offensive line. We'll run the football. We'll get them some quarterbacks that can move around as well. Let's be a more balanced, attack and have McCaskill be the star of the show. He leaves, and all of a sudden, Brandon Campbell's a good back.
Sure.
He's different if he's the second back, though, compared to the first back, right? Like
Snead is back as well, I think.
Snead's back as well, and he's a good back. He's different if he's spelling McCaskill or if he's the guy you have to focus on. And so, this puts more pressure on Donovan Smith or whoever wins that quarterback battle. Houston's entering the Big 12.
Yep.
They're already stepping up. It was already going to be a steep hill anyway to lose arguably your best player, not best running back, like your best player. To arguably lose your best player. That's into a Pac-12 program, maybe. Yeah. That's to tell you didn't lose them to Alabama.
Right.
You didn't lose them to Georgia. You may lose them to Arizona State or Colorado or something. That's a different way to go about it. And so if you're Houston, I think not only does this hurt your football team, but you got to look yourself in the mirror as a program and go, who are we?
Sure.
What are we going to be? We're going to have to step up to the plate because you may not like what this is.
Right.
But that's what this is. And if you're trying to get into the Big 12, that's big boy football. You're going to have to step up and figure this out.
Yeah, this is a quick plug for Talking About Them Cougars on Republican Football Network. Brad and Ryan recorded a podcast. And, of course, if you just go back to last week on the podcast feed and you'll be able to see it. They had a great, in-the-moment, breakdown of just what was going through their mind, what they think happened, right? They didn't really get into, obviously, we'll get that out of the way. It's predicted that he's going to go to Colorado, right? That's when he entered the portal, everybody was tweeting out it's probably in Atlanta, Colorado. They didn't get into that side, but it was more about, because I didn't think that was important for this conversation, which is what you brought up, which is the idea of entering big boy territory, right? Mm-hmm. This isn't
or big girl,
whatever you want, whatever you like.
My bad, Mallory.
Appreciate you.
But this isn't Houston in the AAC getting plucked away by Colorado, right? This is Houston going to the Big 12.
That should be a peer.
Right, exactly. This is theoretically. Yeah. And the thing that I think they did so well, and again, I recommend anybody go listen to that, was breaking down, why wasn't he the guy we took care of? As much as we like Donovan Smith, right? We think he's going to be, he's going to be the guy, and Dana can work his quarterback magic on him and maybe turn him into something. Alton McCaskill was here, and he should have been somebody that whatever NIL fund, NIL opportunity should have been there, he should have been the one to be taken care of.
He's local.
He's local. He's dealt with it. He stayed through the injury, right? And remember, after his freshman year, he definitely could have bounced somewhere, right? He could have gone I'll recover somewhere else, and I'll
score 19 touchdowns.
He was incredible as a freshman.
So good.
Yeah. You saw how that offense looked without him last year.
He was
right?
out all year, and I sat here and had conversations with y'all about him being maybe the person I was going to make the All Texas best running back in the state, because he was just that good as a true freshman.
He was incredible, and so it is it gets to a point, and then I do want to talk about a little bit, because I think a lot of people turn to blaming Dana, right, and blaming Houston, right, where it's sure, in a vacuum I can understand not taking care of your star player, right? That we see what UTSA did for Frank Harris, right? Mm-hmm. They made sure he was good to go. And we'll talk about what's left maybe for other players when we get to Zachary Franklin. But I think that a lot of people rush to think, oh, this is a house on fire. He got away from Dana. I don't think so, because Joseph Duarte talked to him, and he was like, yeah, he was happy here.
Yeah.
Everything was fine. It wasn't him and Dana were clashing, and it was people think that they're just they hate the head coach, so they're going to bounce.
No, they just need money.
Right. Yeah. And that's literally it.
Whoever's listening to this show, close your eyes and remember what 20 years old was like.
Sure.
And then imagine somebody coming up to you and I don't know the number, so I'm just making this up.
Right.
Somebody comes up to you and goes, I'll give you $250,000 to come play football at X university.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds nice.
Bro, I could love that school.
Right.
I could love that coach.
Yep.
And it's $250,000. I love this place.
Yeah.
I love this job.
Right.
I'm a grown-ass adult.
Yeah.
Somebody came and offered me $250,000 to go work at literally anywhere.
Right.
I'm going to take it.
I'm going to take y'all all out to lunch.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to just text you.
Right.
I'm gone.
Right.
And so, if you're, that's the choice. It's not about, I don't like this system, or I don't like this school, or I don't like. It's an opportunity to change your life.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's easy to turn down when it's not your opportunity. But when it's your opportunity, your mom's still paying bills. I'm sure you got siblings, all of this other stuff, your girlfriend, all of these things, right? Maybe you got a kid. All of this stuff going on. This is real life. This isn't a video game. And with the NIL out there and the way you can be out front and stuff about it, if somebody's going to offer you some altering money, you'd be silly not to think about it. And it sucks for the programs and it sucks for college football.
Right.
But we all make decisions to better our own livelihood. We just don't have people rooting for our businesses like that. Like when people don't show up to the office and like buy tickets and cheer for what we're doing. So like nobody cares when I change a job.
Right.
But that's all that is for these guys. I think we need to recalibrate the way we view this stuff. It is a job now.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that is what it is.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, he was the
ain't
first
intramurals,
one,
brother.
Right, I was about to say, yeah.
No, it's not.
So he was the first big name to drop, and then I think I slept in and woke up to the Zachary Franklin news. That was like, oh.
You didn't get phone calls about that?
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, I know you definitely did. You were probably woken up by people angry about that. But it also brought into mind to me, it was like, oh yeah, this hasn't been an issue for UTSA. This was the first. We heard some rumblings about some other names earlier in the offseason, or even last year too, but it was like, this was the first one that actually happened. It was like, oh yeah, they've just held on to everybody. Yeah. And it was like, oh yeah. And so when you're UTSA, you can pull together a lot of local businesses, a lot of, even if they're not local, quote unquote, small businesses, they're businesses based out of San Antonio to pool money for Frank Harris to come back, right? That doesn't mean that everybody else gets the same amount of money.
Right. I mean, it's like pulling together all that money for trailer, but that doesn't mean like your OC
basketball coach or something like that, or OC or something. Yeah. So Zachary Franklin enters the portal, which is a massive loss. Again, not as big of a loss as Alton McCaskill, but you're still talking about a future potential NFL wide receiver. And yeah, without going into specifics or anything, what was the emotions?
Not happy.
Yeah,
right. And like I think they've been worried about losing Franklin back through the spring.
Sure,
there was rumblings of this going into the spring if they were going to have Zachary or not. To your point about UTSA not losing anybody through the portal, Dre Springs, a wide receiver, transferred to UTEP earlier in the site, like in January.
Yes, I do remember that.
And that was the first time a trailer player had transferred to another FBS university.
And that was
only
more,
transferred
that's
down.
insane to think about.
Nobody leaves there.
Right. Nobody. Yeah. And I think that was more of a, well, there's no room for me here.
Yeah.
Like there was more. It was more like
they
I want
helped him go find a spot.
I want to play.
Like,
exactly.
Because
yeah.
Zachary wouldn't leave.
Right.
Because Joshua Cephas wouldn't leave. Because JT Clark wasn't leaving. Right. Because like Kellogg wasn't leaving. Like there was a backfill there. So like, that's what the transfer portal is supposed to be for.
Sure.
Hey, you came here. You've been a great student. You've been a great player on a practice field. But there's just guys here that are a little bit better and more experienced or whatever. It's not, let me go find you a place to go, right? Like that's what it was supposed to be, not necessarily what it's turned into. But I think the mood was bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's never great to lose one of your best players that way. And I think there's some sour taste in their mouth, obviously, for how it goes down and stuff. If you're a fan, right? It's one thing to lose a guy because your culture's not great, and it's like, well, you found a better spot to go be. It's harder to get along when it's like, well, that guy's going to go be 3-9 somewhere or something like that. And so, again, it's like what we were talking about when it can change your life. Like you try to go wish them the best and hope for all that. And it's not the players that anybody has a problem with, right? It's like the system and the lack of rules and the lack of oversight and what's legal, what's not legal. I think UTSA is going to be okay.
Sure.
Obviously you lose one of your best players in that way, and that's never easy or good.
Right.
But as I was saying earlier, I think if there was a position group where they lost JT Clark midway through the season last year, and they didn't miss a step passing wise. And so you're going to have other guys to do it there. They're just going to have to figure out a new offensive coordinator, new league, all that kind of stuff. But, I think wide receiver was the spot to lose it, dude. Yeah.
And, you can confirm this as well. Athletics, Ubben and Max Olson put together a list of like targets that, the Colorado is known to be looking at, and Zachary Franklin is on that list.
Right.
They have 30,000 roster spots. So
who are they not looking at?
I was about to say, they can quite literally just like get bodies at this point and walk into the team. It's like, oh yeah, welcome, But yeah, we'll see kind of the.
It's such a fascinating thing.
It is
watch,
a very like
brand new.
They're literally building a team in an off season, right? In like the span of a month, they're going to bring in 80% of their snaps.
Did y'all see how many people they pulled into their spring game?
Oh yeah,
Stands were
they sold out.
packed.
They sold, the man can hype up some stuff,
I've never
right?
seen
Like
something
That's
like
where
that
all this
before.
bag money's coming from.
I was about to say,
Right.
that's this
Donors
man.
and-
Like
yeah.
I've never seen a sellout spring game. That's a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that in the net by
hype
this
is there.
time in June, they're gonna have 90% of their snaps finally on the roster. But like it's gonna be all this month basically. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Do y'all ever go to ourlads.com? It
Yes,
has like
the depth
depth
chart.
charts and stuff like that.
Is it
like,
blank for Colorado
yeah,
right now?
Colorado's is like, no, Houston's is much better.
No,
honestly.
that's a good point.
But yeah, Colorado's is like pretty much just like blank. You know? So it's just gonna, and we were talking about it earlier today. If you're
Yeah.
TCU, how do you prepare for week 1?
Right. No, yeah, you're looking at. I guess you can kind of watch
You just
Shadur
watch-
Sanders' film.
Right.
Just
and
like
you
what
watch,
can he do?
You watch their coordinators' film, I guess, at their previous school, and that's
Sure.
about it.
Yeah.
Because it's not like they were with them at Jackson State, and all
Right.
these guys are going to be from so many different places that you're not going to sit there and watch like Houston tape
Right.
from McCaskill
and
and,
you can't watch.
UTSA.
I mean, you damn sure can't watch a spring game because like Travis Hunter's beating
Yeah.
a walk on.
Right.
Right. He's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this.
No.
I'll say this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of coaches rooting for Deion Sanders' failure.
Sure.
A lot of coaches rooting for that downfall because, like, man, and this is what it's tough because I'm as pro player as you can get.
Yeah.
I helped start a union.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I totally get it. But this kind of stinks at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not what it was supposed to be. It's not like for people who beat the drum for the transfer portal and for these guys to be able to have the movement. It wasn't for this reason,
Right.
And
Well,
so,
also
like,
you get the other version, which is the stuff he got in hot water for about the film. Right. Where it's like the guys he's kicking out, he's not necessarily helping them find the next destination. It's just like cut bait.
Yeah.
You're on your own.
And we're
Yeah,
jaded
that's a
because we're
little-
DFW. We
Sure.
lived here through Prime Prep. Like
Sure.
we're
Right,
from the
right.
state of Texas. We cover high school football. Like
So we've heard stories.
We know kind of how this may go.
Right.
And so I think it allows us to be a little bit more cynical than maybe the national media would because
Sure.
we've kind of seen it before and saw how it ended.
Yeah.
And maybe Colorado's different, but
Yeah.
like it's hard not to see some similarities.
And the one thing that I will say, we can move on to UNT and their two transfers in a bit, but talking to some of the guys in the recruiting industry who aren't necessarily fans of him, they are very much not fans of how if you're pro Dion, you have to be very openly pro Dion. Because if you don't, you get shut out.
Yeah.
And you're done as far as his recruiting his guys are concerned, his recruits are concerned. And so a lot of even if they're skeptics, they're not allowed to be skeptics if they want to be able to cover him in any significant way. So again, it becomes unfortunately like a very polarizing thing where it's like if you're not for this, you are against this, right? And it's like, well, it's not. I'm kind of in a wait and see mode
That's
right now.
what
right?
cult leaders do.
Right, exactly. It's like I'm in a wait and see mode where it's like, sure, yeah, Jackson State, but I also want to see what Jackson State's like now,
Right.
after he leaves.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
He's never left a place better than it was, honestly.
Right,
Like,
He makes it fun for
right.
at the time being,
Right.
but then he leaves, and you're left with a bill.
It's
so.
it's interesting to see because like you want these guys to be able to move around for their betterment.
Sure.
Is all of this stuff for their betterment?
Right.
I mean, that's up for them to decide.
Sure, right.
And
Exactly.
they're grown people. They're above 18. They can do whatever they want. But it's hard to not look at it and not go, oh, that's kind of stinks.
Right. Sure. And let's get to the last couple transfers. We had Jair Shorter and Cam Robertson from UNT. Coincidentally, I don't think either are on their list. Oh, Cam Robertson, here it is. Cam Robertson's on apparently on Colorado's list, but Jair Shorter's not.
Yeah, well, Cam's going to SMU.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yes, he
Yeah.
did commit. He committed yesterday.
Yesterday.
We're recording on Monday,
Little Sunday
so yeah,
action.
on a Sunday. Yeah. So, so he makes the dreaded trip from Denton to Hilltop, and Jair Shorter, a gifted wide receiver. I mean, the one thing that you could never say about Seth Luttrell's tenure was that he didn't bring athletes and he didn't bring studs.
Yep.
And Jair Shorter is one of those guys who maybe the offense didn't show off in the best way possible because maybe the quarterback throwing him wasn't the most consistent guy, but this is a guy. And
He averaged 27 yards a catch.
I was about to say, this is a big play guy. So,
11 touchdowns on 23 receptions. Like the Chris Carter, like all you do is catch touchdowns.
Right, yeah.
Like when you lose 11 touchdowns from your passing attack,
Yeah.
and you lose like what was going to be your first or second best pass rusher
Yep.
on opposite of Mason Richards. And that's a big loss.
by the way, SMU's defense now is looking kind of
Yeah.
fun as hell.
like all of
They
SMU.
look scary.
quietly.
They're
just-
not
Yeah.
far off of the Colorado thing.
Right. That's a good
No.
point.
You know,
Yeah.
like they've done it in like a maybe like a less like
a more digestible way, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And like it goes back to like how you do things matters.
Sure.
You know, like we're not necessarily like an action-based society.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we live in the gray a lot.
Right.
You know, and like how you do stuff matters. And if Dion would like let the kids have their practice film, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it would be fine. But
Right.
like it's that kind of stuff that I think sours everybody about it. You know, Lashley's been able to turn that roster over in a more organic way.
Sure.
It didn't seem like he was just kicking out 50 dudes, right?
Right.
Like making a big deal about it. But you look at SMU's roster, they're going to go into next year with 65-ish or so of their scholarship players being new in the last 18 months.
Yeah. Looking at Shorter's Twitter right now, he's got an offer from Purdue, UCF, and BYU. So he's definitely looking for a step up, and talent-wise, he can do it. So we'll see.
Yep.
Yeah, so that does it for that. Well, of course, if there's a grad transfer or something, please no. I'm sorry. I don't care if you have your credits. Stay where you're at.
Killing me.
Yeah, I was about to say, go to grad school where you're at. It's fine. They're all the same. All the grad schools are the same.
I never, honestly, I do just like all chips on the table just because
Yeah.
we're like talking this out.
Sure.
I wonder how much I really care about the portal and how much I just care about the magazine.
Oh yeah, no, that's 100%. No, yeah, you want to be accurate.
Yeah.
You don't want Jair Shorter
No, I'm
on
just
UNT.
saying, like, if I still worked at the Statesman, I'd be like, yeah, let's go Dion.
right.
You know? Like I mean, because
point.
we're all self-serving, right? Like
Right,
I can
right.
admit my stuff. You know, like if I'm at the newspaper, I'm probably still like, yeah, it's fine. You know, if guys want to make some money, go make some money. You know,
Right.
and now I'm at the magazine. I'm like, this sucks.
Let me
Well,
open this
I
document
also-
again.
Yeah, this stinks.
I also can't imagine. Like, I submitted my cover boy story on Friday night, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
That felt great.
Yeah.
But you could submit it 80 times, but then
Yeah, I'm
you're still, like,
31,000. I'm 31,000 words in.
I can't
and I'm still fixing
feel
it.
good about it because there's going to be another transfer.
I won't
so
feel good about
feel
it
bad.
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
You
know,
about to say,
like-
it's just like that's just the nature
It's
of
always
the industry
There's
now.
always
It's
something I
always
could. Yeah.
Because like I like
I mean, the equivalent would be Mallory. The equivalent would be your cover boy just like going to a different school.
Right.
Just like bouncing. It's
20
like, I'm
times.
actually going to El Paso. I'm going to El Paso. You know,
20
it's
times.
like, okay, the quotes are all done.
Right.
or he
exactly.
goes to Louisiana high school.
Right, yeah.
Yes,
You know,
no, that's what it would be.
Where you
Yeah,
just
yeah,
don't
yeah,
even
yeah.
cover it
Right,
anymore.
where it's like he's not even in the state anymore.
You can't even use it. Right. Exactly.
And so, like, you know, Alton McCoskell was going to be our second team running back. Zachary Franklin's going to be on the first team. Jair Shorter is going to be on the second. You know, these are all guys that are like all college. You're not losing your backup defensive end.
Right.
No.
You know, you're losing like frontline star players. And so it makes, you know, the newspaper industry is struggling in a lot of ways because news doesn't stay stagnant for 6 hours.
Right, exactly.
Much less,
Yeah.
like, you know, 2 months. And we're writing stuff for April and May. This isn't me complaining about Dave Campbell. This is just the magazine industry, right? Like Phil
Yeah.
Still, like Lindy's is
He deals with all the
Athlon,
same thing.
You know, all the stuff. Athlon's all doing the same stuff. Where you're trying to write these. Back in the day, you knew what a team was going out of spring.
Yep.
Right.
Because the only players that were showing up were like teenagers over the summer, and they probably weren't going to deal much of stuff. Now, so much can change. I mean, think about what USC was when we were doing the magazine this time last year, and
Yeah.
what USC was by the time we put the magazine out.
Yep.
They went from not in my top 25 to not really know to like a top 5 team in the, you know, and that all happened in May.
Right.
Yep.
You know, or late April or whenever that happened. And so, it's just hard. It's a harder and harder job to do because news doesn't stay still for long enough to put it into a magazine or a newspaper or anything of that nature. That's why digital's king.
Yep.
Well, yeah,
Even
the
here.
transfer portal didn't help that either.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Now,
It's just-
this year will be better. You remember, like, Katie Davis last year was allowed to jump
Right.
in whenever you wanted to jump in.
Yeah,
This year, at least the
right.
window closes to where,
a
like,
little bit. Or, yeah.
we should be able to not have many departures not figured for the magazine.
Right.
Right.
It'll be a few additions that happen late on that maybe we'll miss. But we should know, we shouldn't like write about a starting linebacker somewhere and then in July be like, holy cow, he just entered the portal.
Right.
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 'Cause at that point,
These
they'd have
windows
to
are
sit out
helping a little
year.
bit, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we'll at least know that stuff. But,
Yep.
Yeah, that's enough of my problems.
No, it's all good. Well, again,
It's May.
It's May, man.
What do y'all want me to talk about other than myself?
magazine.
Well, here's one thing we can talk about. This past weekend, got the draft happening. It was a pretty fun weekend for former Texas players, Texas high school football / Texas college players. Let me start with this. Do you have a favorite landing spot? Either of you, Because like I have a couple, but I have one in particular. Go with yours, Craven. If
Rashee Rice, Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh.
You're a wide receiver. You get drafted by a team, and
That's
it
a
has
good
Patrick
one.
Mahomes
Yeah.
as the
That's a
quarterback and
really
Travis
good one.
Kelce at tight end, and you just get to go kill it in the slot.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm just gonna go gobble up 80 catches as a rookie and like
Right.
go into my second deal in 3. You know what I mean? Like that dude's gonna put up numbers. Like, and so like he's gonna get paid. You know, as long as he stays healthy and stuff, he's going to put up for numbers for 3 or 4 years to where even if he's like an average wide receiver, he's going to put up like top tier numbers. So yeah, if I play a position at like wide receiver and I could pick a spot, it would be Kansas City, and Rashee Rice gets to go do that for second round money.
I like that. I like that a lot. Mallory, do you have one?
I need to go back and look at it.
I have two. So I had one in the first round that I was like, this stupid league, let him go. Jackson Smith and Jigba to the Seahawks.
Yeah.
You're going to let this man run Robin to DK Metcalf. That is DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
And then a rejuvenated Geno Smith. He just gets to like you mentioned, he just gets to slot in there. He's like, I'll run. Yeah, DK Metcalf take
What's
the double.
a double team?
Right, exactly. DK Metcalf, you good over there?
Yeah,
Triple team?
right,
I'm good.
yeah.
That's
They're
one.
rolling coverage that way.
It's great. Oh, and then the day 2 guy, Devon Achane to the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, speed.
Yeah.
There was one great clip of McDaniel, Mike McDaniel, when they did the Devon Achane pick, he like fist pumped and everything, and then like they go to the next clip when it's like the 4th round, drafted a defensive player. He's like legs are kicked up on his phone. He doesn't care. Like
He's still an OC.
yeah, exactly. He was like, we got this dynamic utility, insane, probably the fastest player in the draft, all this stuff. And it's like, linebacker, cool. Like it's fine.
Dude, they have a budding 4x100 team.
With him and Tyreek. Oh my
Oh,
god.
and then Waddle's there as well.
Oh my god, Jalen Waddle. So much speed on that.
I don't know who the 4th leg would be or whatever, but like those 3 right there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you put Tua on that leg.
I was about to say
and you're
Tua
still
doesn't
gonna,
Tua can just like throw little pop shots everywhere and just they can go for 70 yards. That is
A-Chain's going to be great in that offense.
Yes.
He can do so many different things. He's probably not going to be a 3-down back.
Oh, and they have Raheem Mostert too.
But he can be a 3rd-down guy. He can be a slot guy. He can help in the return game. Just
Yep.
the amount of speed that gets on the field. And, as we talk about a lot, this is becoming positionless football, right? The way we've seen basketball, get away from some of that. And so you get those 3 guys on the same offense. So a linebacker or a safety's got to cover one.
Right.
And you're going to be a lot faster than that guy.
I
And
feel
so,
like
that's an advantage.
And also, like, he was able to stand out in an offense that got so much crap. Like, if he played in a different offense, like, are we talking about the first, like a Jahmyr Gibbs, right, or who goes in the first round? Like, I feel like we are, because he seemed like he was on that trajectory when his first couple of years.
Devon A-Chain at Georgia.
Right, yeah, it's just anybody else that can drop something different, right, than just a dive or whatever they were doing with him in College Station. Let's get to the first round, though. We had a couple of really good, interesting picks. We had Tyree Wilson of the Raiders, first Texas player drafted. We had Bijan Robinson of the Falcons, and then we had
Gross.
I
felt so bad for him.
Yeah.
People have been
Yeah.
mocking him to the Eagles.
right, and
He goes to
he
the
oh my,
Falcons.
he's like, I get to go to the Super Bowl too.
Yeah.
This is gonna be great. And then they're like, no, never mind. Like,
Could have gone to the Lions because clearly they were in the hunt for a running back in the first
That
round.
was-
that was
yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs.
their whole first.
I like
round
Jahmyr
was-
Gibbs. I don't know about that.
I
high.
think Detroit only picked offensive guys.
I think they
Yeah,
did.
because they picked an offensive lineman as
Yeah.
their second pick in the first round.
We had Quentin Johnson to the Chargers.
I think that's
and
a cool
then
one.
That's a really cool
Justin
one.
Herbert.
Yeah, and he also gets to learn from. I didn't realize this. I forgot Keelan Allen still played, and Mike Williams. So 2 of the best big wide receivers.
Yeah.
He gets to learn from how to use his size. That's kind of been a thing for his whole career, is like being able to use that physicality.
And I'll have a quarterback that can get the ball deep.
I was about to
him.
say, take a 70-yard bomb.
Yeah.
Or something.
I liked Deuce Vaughn to the Cowboys too. I thought that was really
That was a
cool.
good one.
Him
Video
getting
was
drafted
great.
by
That
his
was a
dad,
great
and I know
moment.
he's probably not going to make an immediate impact, but I think he's got potential there for
Sure. I mean,
Dude,
he's one of those guys you take a
underestimate-
flyer on, man.
Definitely.
Underestimate Deuce Vaughn at y'all's own peril.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
like, at the very least, you got a special teams like dynamo.
I'm not. I wouldn't bet
Absolutely.
a single dime against Deuce Vaughn doing anything.
Absolutely
Yeah.
not. No,
Yep.
I think we'll be hearing his name a lot.
Yeah.
And then another Texas tie, Christian Gonzalez, went to the Patriots. Which, how do they let the Patriots get like the most physical corner in the draft? Of course, Christian Gonzalez from Oregon by way of Colorado from the Colony. So he did a little trekking around there.
2 beautiful campuses he chose.
I know, right?
That was smart.
He left Colorado. He's like, I need this again.
Wonder if he's a
Some-
hiker.
Yeah. You know what? That's
know?
not bad. He's athletic. He's an athletic family too. So yeah.
All
maybe.
Trails app.
Yeah. So, so yeah, there's the draft this weekend.
Are y'all draft people?
I watch
I'm a first rounder.
I'll pay attention to the first round. I'm not. I'll kind of watch the second round a little bit, but my favorite day is the Saturday when I just have it on, and then I can just see a name that I know.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look, that guy. Like Zach Evans went on, I think he went on the third day. Where it was like, oh, look, Zach Evans, that's cool. Like, to me, the third day's for, like, college football fans. Where you're like,
Yes.
oh, yeah, this guy that put up 4,000 yards passing, but he was 5'9", so he didn't go in the first round. So it's like, sure, why not? I don't watch it. I'll do something else, but I'll have it on.
Yeah, I was like looking for like Clayton Tune and Max Duggan,
Sure,
where
yeah.
they're going to go, and I look for Michigan State players that go late too. So
Yeah.
I'm
definitely first round.
Yeah.
I'm not far enough
Oriented.
removed from my recruiting life.
Sure.
Like, I think once those guys aren't dudes that I covered when they were in high school, I'll have less interest in it.
Sure.
But I kind of see the draft as a final grade
Sure, yeah.
of like what my ability was,
Like
to
a validation.
or
Definitely.
the opposite.
Yeah, sure.
And so like it's always just interesting to kind of see where you were right, maybe who you were wrong on, and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. Another one that I just wanted to shout out, Roshan Johnson. It was really cool to see him. Like, just remembering, I mean, and you covered this kid too in high school. Just remember the quarterback from PNG, and then watching him take that phone call in his Mack truck, just sitting on the couch. And you're like, you were a quarterback, man. Like, you were supposed to be a quarterback. Now you're a drafted NFL running back. So
Yeah.
it is cool. Yeah, like I said, day 3 is the one for me, just because, like I said, if you pay attention to college football, those are when your guys kind of go. So that was really cool. All right, so unless you guys got nothing else, we can go end on this one. So now that we're done with spring and we are, at least knocking on wood, theoretically done with roster turnarounds and stuff like that, we know, quote unquote, know what these rosters look like. Do you guys have? Let's each pick a team that we think could win a conference title this year and why. Most likely team to win a conference title and why. It can be any conference, obviously Texas teams, but any conference, any team, whatever you want. Is there any team that you're just like, here's the other thing. I'm taking Texas out. I'm making up the rule right now. I'm taking Texas out because that's the easy one. We've talked about them too much on the show already.
I don't really
Texas
have...
won like one conference title in 20 years.
Exactly.
I know.
And I'm removing
And you're taking them off the board.
And I'm removing them right now because
This is how
that's
they
the
get their
layup.
elitist.
Exactly.
This is how they get their opinion of themselves.
Yes, exactly. I'm removing them because here's the problem, because we're going to be talking about them for a long
Yeah,
time.
sure.
This
We have plenty
offseason.
of time to talk Texas.
So there's all the hype. They don't need any more. So I'm just going to remove them from the conversation.
Okay.
Take
I think
any
that's
other team in the
not-
state.
I think that's against the rules, but
Was that yours?
well, but
It's my rules.
I
I'm
feel
the
like
host.
there are that's a clear answer
Sure.
to this equation.
Yeah, I'm making it harder.
Okay.
Think a little bit harder.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to go first?
Yeah, let's go first.
Okay.
Give me SMU.
Okay.
Give me SMU because you got a new look AAC, right?
Yeah.
The only other team you really got to worry about is UTSA. And if we're talking the top guys, obviously you take UTSA, right? Frank Harris, best player, right? If we're talking everybody else, front seven, we're talking offensive line. Well, again, UTSA's offensive line's healthy, so we'll see. But if we're talking just guys coming in, filling out that 2 deep, I like SMU. I really do. Now, if you asked me today, I probably would chicken out and pick UTSA. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking SMU is a team that is just there. Like they filled all the holes, not all the holes. They filled a lot of the holes they need. They've gone portaling in the right way, using past ties to Miami and things like that. And I think they've just put together this roster that isn't flashy. They've gotten a couple guys here, like you just mentioned, Cam Robertson, a couple guys here and there playmaking, but for the most part, that's just a solid team that's just going to get better. And I think that one step better in this AAC is enough to maybe take them to a title.
I was gonna go UTSA
Because
because I think I think them and then SMU and I think Tulane is obviously probably the 3 front
yeah, that's a good one.
runners to
That's
win.
a good one. I forget about Tulane always.
But I think Tulane also has their quarterback coming back.
I think Pratt is coming
yeah,
back.
he's coming back. But I just think that UTSA, they've got the experience. They know how to win pretty much in big time games and stuff. I think UTSA.
Because here, my concern with SMU is like the cohesion of that group.
Sure.
Like
sure.
man for
None of
man.
them know each other.
Man,
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's like
you're over there doing the interview, and you're like, "Hey, who stood out to you on the defense?" And you ask one defensive guy, there, and
number
like,
4.
that guy that from Miami looked really good. You know, like, they don't really know each other yet, right? And like
That other guy from Miami.
every football coach I've ever talked to compares this to war.
Yeah.
Where like there's going to be adversity. It's going to be the fourth quarter, and you're like playing for that dude next to you, and how much you care about that dude next to you dictates a lot of things.
Sure,
And,
sure.
That exists at UTSA in a way it doesn't exist at SMU, and so they don't play each other in the regular season. And I guess for me, they're two, like Mallory said, they're two of the 3 favorites. So let's play this game where SMU and UTSA reach the conference championship game, and it's a one-off game against one program.
They don't play each other.
They don't play
They
each
don't.
other.
Okay.
So but they get to they say we both get to the conference championship game. They're playing each other. One has won 20 of the last 23 games that they've played in.
Yeah.
2-0 in conference championship games. Have a quarterback who's led countless come from behind victories.
Sure.
Jeff Traylor's something like 14-5 in one possession games or something like that. And then the other side's a very talented group, but we hadn't seen them do that.
Sure.
I think I have to lean towards UTSA in that scenario.
Yeah.
If I had to pick between those two, I do think it's most likely if a team in the state of Texas wins a conference championship, the Americans should be the top pick.
Sure.
SMU, UTSA, I believe, are the top 2. Texas, I would pick to win the Big 12, them or Kansas State. But if I'm not allowed to play that game,
Nope, not allowed to play that game.
give me the Red Raiders.
Yeah. I
That's
think
a good
that
pick.
was my second pick.
I don't see there's a way to win the Sun Belt. Texas State's not going to do that
Not in
year
year
one, right? I don't see a way to win Conference USA. Sam
Nope.
Houston, UTEP's not there. So
Nope.
we're down to the Big 12 and the American.
SEC.
We're down to the Big 12 and the American.
I wanted to see your reaction.
So I did that. I'm so glad you set me up for that. I thought that was going to go unseen or unheard. And so we have the Big 12 or the American. And we talked about the American, so I'll take the Big 12 if I can't take Texas. And Texas Tech, to me, feels like a team that could do what TCU did last year. Even what Kansas State did last year. I mean,
Sure.
Kansas State went from an 8-win team in 2021 to Big 12 champion in 2022. TCU went from a 5-win team in 2021 to a 12-0 team in 2022. Baylor went from a 2-7 team in 2020 to a Big 12 champion in 2021. It feels like the Big 12 is one of those teams where you can make a jump from middle of the pack to the top of the pack.
Yeah.
And you do that with a pretty good defense and a solid offense. And I think Tech has 2 quarterbacks that can play on Sunday. They have a couple really good running backs. That wide receiver room is really good. They're going to score points. Zach Kitley has coached football for a certain amount of time, and every single time that he's done it, they have scored a lot of points, right?
Yes.
Tim DeRuyter is excellent. Like, he's quietly one of the best defensive coordinators in the state.
They turned Tyree Wilson into a top
Right.
5, 8 pick, whatever.
And
you want.
they return a lot more production on that side of the ball. I mean, they have eight of their 11 starters from the Sugar Bowl or from the Texas Bowl win over Ole Miss back, and so I think they're going to be okay on that side. So I don't know if I'd pick them to win the Big 12, but I think they're a dark horse team that could do what Baylor did, can do what TCU, can do what Kansas State did.
Yeah, I will say you brought up a good point and a good comparison with they don't. Kleiman and Joey McGuire are not the same person, but what I mean is their teams are, to me, you mentioned the Kansas State step, right? That net step forward. I think that's very similar because as talented as we know that coaching staff at TCU is, that was still a team that flew by the seat of its but flew very close to the sun at a lot of times, right? Where it's like oh man, they need this crazy. And granted,
they were held together by duct tape,
right? Exactly.
And the bottom 40 of that roster last year was
also the Baylor win. That's coaching at the end, right? Where it's like they executed that perfectly, but you still got to execute that perfectly, right? Kansas State, it was very much not the same vein of how Kansas State was last year in terms of you just saw them, you're like, what's the weakness?
Yeah.
You just looked at Kansas State last year. You're like, this game's gonna suck to play.
Right. That's exactly. I don't want to play them.
Right.
They
don't make mistakes. Yeah. They had the explosion factor last year. They added the explosion factor, and then they just don't make mistakes. And you're just like, what? It's gonna suck. Tech's getting to that point where you're like, I don't want to play because they're gonna have 120 possessions, right? They're going to be well coached. They're not going to make, that's kind of the next step for them is not making those mistakes that, Donovan Smith was kind of making, the offensive line. That's kind of their next step. But if they make that, they just become like this well-rounded machine where there's no they don't have the game-breaking Heisman player, but it's just a bunch of dudes who are Power 5 level and that can just like beat you playing their brand of football.
Right.
And it's like, oh
and
my
they
God.
believe 100%.
I was just about to say, give me the team, give me the coach that knows how to build the correct culture
Sure.
in the locker room. Because, I mean, look at it last year. You can look at the Texas and the Texas Tech game from last year. You had a team in Texas Tech that wasn't individually as talented as Texas, but they went out there as a group and beat Texas. I just feel like, give me the team.
culture
that-
wins.
Yeah.
Yes,
that-
right. That culture
that-
matters. They have their heads on straight in the locker room. They actually
Yeah.
believe in the program.
That
That's
phrase-
Texas's problem every single year. The talent's there, but
Yeah.
the culture, there's something in that locker room.
That phrase gets thrown around a lot, right? Like culture, coaches talk about culture and building culture and all that.
Yeah.
And like for a lot of coaches, it's like it's just a word you use, right? It's just like, you don't know really what to do, so you're just like, I'm changing the culture.
Buying into the program.
Right, buying
yeah.
into the program, changing the you spend 5 minutes around that guy, right? And it's in another way. I mean, again, we can go back to last year's cover, but like in another way, it's the same thing in San Antonio, right? Different person, but similar idea. You just be around him, you're like, oh, okay, something is just different here, right? Yeah, there, you sense there's like a radiation, right, where it just like gravitates off of them, and you're like, oh yeah, no, your players actually do want to like die for you.
I mean, that's
right.
what happened at TCU.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
That roster wasn't much different.
Sure.
Like, we can list all the best players that got drafted yesterday. All of them are Gary Patterson guys.
Yeah.
But they were unlocked.
Yep.
From prison.
Yep.
Like, they went from, like, an authoritative governor
Yeah.
to, like, Sonny Dykes.
Yeah, arm around
and
the shoulder, a little bit of arm around the
hey,
shoulder,
man,
and you
let's
go.
do this thing. Y'all are really good. Like,
Right.
This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, look at all the stuff we got. Let's go have some fun and win some football games. And they won 12 in a row, And so, like, culture does win. Like, it's not – I think TCU is the perfect example of that. Baylor going from 2-7 to 12-2 and then back to 6-7. You can look at each one of those moves and point to the culture, right?
Yep.
2-7, first-year coach trying to be Matt Rule, not really getting his own voice, trying to figure it out. Fails. The next year, he becomes more of his guy. He leans on his leaders. They have a great senior-led team with Terrell Bernard, Jalen Petrie, JT Woods, all those guys. Wins 12 games. The next year, he goes into it, doesn't get any portal guys. They lose all their old dudes. They're a young team that's immature, and they go 6-7, right?
Yeah.
Like Aranda didn't coach. He didn't forget where to coach and when to coach. Like, it comes down to what those guys in the locker room believe in, how hard they're going to play, and how much they want to play. Like, it's fine margins.
Yeah.
Like, this is a gladiator sport. Like, if you show up with even 90% of buy-in, you're probably going to lose to a team with 100% of buy-in. You know, and so for me, it feels like Tech is there culture-wise. And so if they can stay healthy, obviously, and you got to assume health when we're having this conversation, because like injuries can mess up any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But if we presume health and they stay healthy, I think Texas Tech has as good of a shot as anybody to break from middle of the pack to the top end of the pack. Like, if it's not going to be Texas, it's not going to be Oklahoma. Give me Tech or Kansas State, as one of those teams that could do that. Maybe even TCU, honestly.
Maybe. I was about to say, well, that'll be a good test for this, see how much of that was, or do they have a Baylor reset, or is it more of like, no, there was actually something here that wasn't just Gary's guys?
I think that was the coolest part about doing the magazine this year is, like, last year there was a lot of knowns.
Sure,
You know,
right.
there was a lot of, like, who was coming back, who the favorites were. I mean,
It's like a
obviously
pa-
TCU broke out of that.
Right.
you
But for
had
the
an
most
idea
part, for the
of,
most
like,
part, yeah.
who, this year, I mean, tell me the boring program in the state.
Right. It's a chapter turn for every single program, basically.
Yes.
Really
and
is.
it's like one of those make or break years at like 5 I mean, I could say there could be a coaching change at Houston. That wouldn't be shocking.
Yeah.
Coaching change at I don't know, I was going to say Baylor even.
Right, yeah.
Wouldn't be completely shocking, right? And so, like, you can go through the state and kind of UTEP, is in new waters, right? Sam Houston moving up. Traylor, Rice, and North Texas all in the American. What can they be? Like, can SMU emerge as a G5 program? Are they going to the Pac-12? Like, there's just storylines across the state going into 2023 all over the place, and a lot of them are unknowns.
Yep, 100%. So we will leave it at that. How's that for an off-season episode? See, we can do this job. We'll leave it there, and thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Mallory and Craven, as well, as usual. We recorded this on Monday, so if there's any news dropping, you check the website.
TexasFootball.com.
Check the website. That's why we have the website. So, again, thank you to everybody who watches, listens. Please subscribe, rate all those. Listen to all the shows on the Republic of Football Network. Working very hard on it. The crew is incredible. Should be a new episode of Gambling Gauchos coming up. Well, by the time this episode goes up, of course, you got Aggie Warpod, you got Eyes on Texas, all that stuff should be all out by the time this episode drops on Wednesdays. So Thank you guys. And of course, we've interviewed 12 of the eventual 13, or the now 13 FBS programs in the state of Texas. Jimbo Fisher, please come on the show. That was like the only, aside from a sideswipe, that was the only mention of A&M on this show right now was that reference right there.
No, I left out SEC.
No, I was going to say, aside from the sideswipe. From the sideswipe.
They're not
Anyway.
winning the conference, probably.
Look, at this point, I'm just like trying to see whatever, see how much I can get away with until he actually comes on, which will never happen. So, with that being said, go Rutgers.